Mixed reactions in Nigeria after the decision by the Electoral Commission to postpone next week's elections. Security is said to be a concern, but are politics also at play? How will the delay affect the election campaign, and what does it mean for the fight against Boko Haram in the north? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Fuliba Thibault. Civil rights groups, opposition parties and some Western countries have criticized the decision by Nigeria's Electoral Commission to delay elections. The commission announced it was postponing the February 14th presidential vote by 6 weeks. It said that troops needed to protect polling stations were busy fighting the armed group Boko Haram. President Goodluck Jonathan and his ruling party have welcomed the decision, which was announced at a time when violence in northern Nigeria is ongoing. But is the delay justified? To our guests in just a moment. But first, Muhammadu is in Lagos with more.
There have been mixed reactions to the decision by the Nigerian Electoral Commission to postpone the country's elections for a period of 6 weeks. The ruling People's Democratic Party of President Goodluck Jonathan has welcomed the move by the Electoral Commission, while the main opposition party, the All Progressives Congress of General Muhammadu Buhari, termed it as a setback to democracy in Nigeria. There are some Nigerians who also see foul play in the whole matter. However, it's unclear at this point whether the postponement of the elections will be of benefit to President Goodluck Jonathan or his main rival Muhammadu Buhari. There have also been questions regarding the sincerity of the whole matter and whether insecurity is the real reason for the postponement of the elections. Boko Haram have been on the rampage since 2009 in northern Nigeria, killing thousands of people, burning down villages, and also attacking Nigeria's neighbors. And many people are asking themselves whether the Nigerian military will be able to achieve in just 6 weeks what it failed to achieve in 6 years. There are also questions regarding whether the elections will still be held at the end of March if Boko Haram is still in existence. There are some who say that will depend on some very powerful individuals around the president and whether they feel he's finally ready for victory. Muhammadu for Inside Story, Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, there are 14 candidates running for Nigeria's highest office, but there are only two main contenders. The incumbent, Goodluck Jonathan, is a Christian from the oil-rich Niger Delta in the south. He's from the ruling People's Democratic Party and was elected in 2011. Before that, he had served as acting president for a year after the death of Umaru Yar'Adua. Jonathan's administration has been accused of corruption and failing to deal with attacks in northern Nigeria. His main rival is Muhammadu Buhari, a Muslim from the north who's a member of the All Progressives Congress Party. He's a former military ruler who took power in a coup in 1984 and led Nigeria for almost 2 years. He then ran in 3 elections but lost all of them. Buhari is known as a disciplinarian and has promised to defeat the armed group Boko Haram within months if he's elected. But his critics suspect he'll bring back a dictatorship to Nigeria. Well, joining us now on Inside Story is Femi Fani-Kayode, who's a spokesman for President Goodluck Jonathan's campaign. He is live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Fani-Kayode. As you've heard, opposition politicians in Nigeria have accused the military of forcing the Electoral Commission to delay the vote next week to help President Goodluck Jonathan's campaign. What do you respond to these accusations?
Well, that is a laughable accusation. It has no basis in reality or rationality. And of course, I wouldn't have expected anything different from the type of people that are leading the opposition in this country. There's no basis for that, and it's simply not true.
Atahiru Jega, the head of the Election Commission, has said that the postponement was necessary as he was told that troops were not available to protect polling stations because they were too busy dealing with Boko Haram in the north. In other words, that they were on their own if they decided to go ahead with the election. He said, and I want to quote this to you, the commission cannot lightly wave off the advice of the nation's security chiefs. He said, again, they cannot lightly wave off the advice of the nation's security chiefs. So it would seem, Mr. Fani-Kayode, that the Nigerian authorities influenced this decision by the Electoral Commission to delay the poll. It would seem that there's some sort of political interference, some would say.
No
what would you
respond?
What would you respond to that, to those who say that there has been political interference?
Well, first of all, there's a difference between forcing, which is what you suggested initially, that the military more or less INEC to take the decision that they took, and for INEC to consider the concerns that the military and the security agencies had and to take them very seriously. And they told us that as a consequence of the fact that a major offensive was about to be launched against Boko Haram in the northeast, it would be difficult for them to assist the police in conducting elections, which is the traditional role that the military play in Nigerian elections. And INEC took them very seriously and decided to go with them and listen to their counsel and delay by 6 weeks. But I might add that it wasn't only about conducting the election or the security, it was also about the fact that INEC itself was not ready. 34% of the electorate, those eligible to vote, did not have their voters' cards. And there were so many other issues that INEC needed to resolve before going to the polls. We had raised concerns about this, like any responsible party would, that look, when 34% of your people do not have voters' cards, don't you think it's wise to do your job properly and then ensure everybody can vote? We raised those concerns, and so did many other Nigerian stakeholders. And I think it was the issue of security, plus the issue of lack of voters' cards, and so many other issues that all came together to cause INEC to now come to the decision that it was wise to delay by 6 weeks. Now, the 6 weeks delay makes no difference to us. It's not for us to be defending INEC's actions. They can do that themselves. But what we are saying is that we are comfortable with it. We've taken their counsel in good faith. We were ready for February the 14th. We're ready for March the 28th or 29th or whenever it is. And whenever it is, we believe that we will defeat the APC and their candidate.
Mr. Fani-Kayode, Al Jazeera has spoken to the leader of Nigeria's main opposition party, who has expressed concern about the latest strategy to deal with Boko Haram. Muhammadu Buhari said that the group cannot be defeated within weeks. Take a listen.
My reaction is that of extreme disappointment because as the National Council of States, the chairman of INEC, independent Nigerian Electoral Commission, gave a detailed brief of their activities from 2011, that's from the last general election to then. And they clearly said, or he said that they are ready to hold the election. If the same military cannot secure 14 local governments out of 774 in 6 years, how can we be sure they can secure those 14 local governments in 6 weeks?
So I'm going to put that question to you, Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode. Are 6 weeks enough to sort out the logistical problems as well as the insecurity in northeastern Nigeria?
It's not a question of sorting out the insecurity in northeastern Nigeria. We've lived with this insecurity for the last few years, ever since 2010 when Boko Haram started. We've lived with it, we've fought it. We virtually overcome it by pushing it to a part of the country, the northeastern part of the country, and I think we're doing reasonably well in that respect. The fact of the matter is that what we're talking about is the conduction of an election. And as far as we're concerned, we need to ensure that the armed forces are fully ready and that can not only fight on the war front, but at the same time police those elections to ensure that we don't end up having casualties. Look, the fact of the matter is this. General Buhari spoke about the INEC chairman saying that they were ready to go ahead. That's not strictly true. He acknowledged the fact at that meeting where Buhari was present that only 66% of registered voters had voters' cards. He also acknowledged the fact there were a number of other logistical problems that INEC had. He also pointed out the fact that over 600,000 INEC officials will be conducting these elections and that he himself did not feel safe or didn't feel that it would be right for his workers to go out, 600,000 of them, and to have to do their work during the course of the elections without full security protection from the police and from the military. So it's not just about the security. It's about a number of other issues. Right. And if we're talking about conducting an election, let's do it properly. Let's ensure that we have peace. Let's ensure that the INEC officials that are conducting it are safe. Let's ensure that voters on both sides are safe. And let's ensure that the military are in a position to secure the lives and property of the Nigerian people. If Buhari and his people had so much confidence in the election, why does 6 weeks make any difference?
Right.
And that's the question I'd like to put to him and his
well,
supporters.
well, if, as you said, there are a lot of issues, and Boko Haram is at the forefront of concern for many Nigerians today. I just want to ask you about President Goodluck Jonathan's strategy. You say you've been doing well in dealing with Boko Haram, but, you know, we're seeing daily attacks in Nigeria today, in the north, in Nigeria. In the last 5 years, thousands of people have died. That's a reality. So how do you convince Nigerians today that you can keep them safe now and in the future when it hasn't been the case?
Well, frankly, you know, you have to look at the history of it. You have to look at the situation and understand it clearly. Up until a year or two ago, we were having bombings all over Abuja, our nation's capital, throughout the north-central region, in Kano, in Niger State, all over the north-central, all over the northwest, and, of course, the main war front, which is the northeast. Now, all of that ceased about a year or so ago, just over a year ago, when our military forces, our armed forces, went into full engagement with Boko Haram. They pushed them out of the north-central area. They pushed them into the corner of the northeast, and they have been engaging them there and containing them there ever since. Now, of course, you're absolutely right. The war is still going on there. However, it is not a war that's being fought throughout the country anymore, as it once was. Let me also tell you, had it not been for the efforts of the military,
Mr. Fani-Kayode, neighboring countries are now having to get involved in this war against Boko Haram. Cameroon is getting involved as well. So, I mean, that's a cause for concern. If other countries in the region are now also affected, it means that Nigeria really hasn't handled the problem well from the get-go.
You are absolutely wrong. Not at all. The fact that other countries are getting involved emphasizes the fact, or proves the point, that this is an international issue. It's not just for Nigerians. Boko Haram is an Islamist organization that is funded from forces outside Nigeria and has many non-Nigerians within its ranks. They are fighting not only on Nigerian soil, but also on Cameroonian soil, Chadian soil, and Nigerian soil. And they use those areas, or those countries, as their operational basis. It is right and proper, and I think long overdue, that the Nigerians, the Cameroonians, and the Chadians join forces with us. After all, we are part of the West African sub-region, to contain these terrorists and to fight them. That is what happens all over the world in the fight against terror. It's happening in it's happening in the Middle East, happening in Iraq, happening in Afghanistan, happening everywhere else. Why shouldn't it happen here? It is not a testimony to the fact that we have failed in any way. It's more a testimony to the fact that we finally realize and acknowledge the fact that we must join forces, all of us in this sub-region, regardless of which country you're from, and you have to fight Boko Haram. Now, we've done reasonably well in that, because we have pushed them back. We have determined where the war front will be. They have not been able to come any further down than they have already done. They are taking towns, and we are taking those towns back. And I'm a little bit tired of the fact that the efforts of our armed forces are not being fully acknowledged by the international community. I know the majority of Nigerians accept the fact that we're doing well on the war front, and we shall continue to do well in collaboration with our West African partners.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, spokesman for President Goodluck Jonathan's campaign.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, let's now bring in our other guests for today's show. In Lagos, Kayode Ogundamisi, host of a UK-based political show and member of the Media and Publicity Committee for Muhammadu Buhari's campaign. And in London, we have Manji Cheto, vice president of the global advisory firm Teneo Intelligence and risk analyst on the political economy of sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you both for being on Inside Story. Kayode, in Lagos, if I may start with you, what do you see as the real motive for postponing the elections next week?
The first thing we should ask the Nigerian government is how long did it take them to discover that 1.5 million Nigerians have been internally displaced as refugees, both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria? How long did it take them to realize that 30,000 Nigerians have been killed by their own statistics by Boko Haram? 6 years. They refused to do anything. They left Nigerians unprotected. And just 6 weeks to election, when it was clear that the Nigerian people were mobilizing for change so that they can get in a government that will protect them, the president literally plotted a coup against the Nigerian voters.
No, but this was a decision, of course, of the Electoral Commission. Sorry to interrupt you. It was a decision of the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be independent, who said...
The Electoral Commission...
Sorry, they say they couldn't go ahead with the election because they couldn't get the security at the polling stations because the Nigerian military is too busy fighting Boko Haram in the north.
Professor Atari Jega, with all due respect, was very clear that INEC was ready to go ahead with this election, but that the military, the service chiefs, who should be loyal to the Nigerian people, but chose to be loyal to a president who is more against the people, refused to provide security. Let me tell you, on the day the announcement was made, soldiers were rolled out in Lagos, Ibadan, Jos Plateau, Abeokuta, Enugu. Where did they get those troops from? And as we speak, soldiers are in their barracks across the country. This issue is just a president who is seeing a clear sign that people are going to change his government. And let's ask the president this question. When did they take the decision? Because about 2 weeks ago, the military, the service chiefs were still telling the world that they were ready for this election. What has happened in this, with the postponement is an attempt by the Goodluck administration to push Nigeria to the brink. Because you will know that if we don't have this election by next month, there's a constitutional limitation in which we are going to have an interim national government. And spokesperson of the presidency had made it clear that they would rather hand over to an interim national government than a democratically elected Buhari administration. And the international community must put them to task. We are quite happy that the US government and the EU and a majority of Nigerians have voiced their resistance against this illegal move by the administration.
Okay.
And even within the country, people are disappointed, but people are acting to make sure that we have a peaceful election next month.
Let's get the view of Manji Cheto in London. Manji, who do you think this delay will favour, the incumbent, Goodluck Jonathan, or the opposition candidate, Muhammadu Buhari?
Well, I think it's important to note that actually I don't think that this is likely to alter a voter's view. That really the supporters of the All Progressive Congress and the supporters of the People's Democratic Party, I think if anything, this actually helps them sort of consolidate their own position on the matter. You can certainly tell from both the tone of the government and the opposition that their supporters are really angry about the decision. So I think ultimately, you know, if this was designed to actually kind of change the electoral outcome, I think the impact is going to be quite limited, actually.
But it seems that the conflict in the north will not be brought to an end in 6 weeks. It's highly unlikely anyway. So do you think the election will be held at all? Are we looking at another delay? I mean, or is it going to happen in 6 weeks' time?
I think this is really the most important question and a very legitimate question actually to be asked by the opposition party because, you know, up until now we've obviously had the military over and over again say that they're winning the war against terrorism. We've also heard the presidential spokesperson, Mr. Fani-Kayode, make that point about how they are winning the war. So really then it begs the question, if the war is being won, I mean, why has it taken this long for the military to then turn around and say that they won't be ready to organise elections? And in 6 weeks' time, I mean, can we expect the military to achieve what they've not been able to achieve in 6 years' time? I think this is a really legitimate concern. And if the government wants to put to bed some of that speculation, what would really be useful is for the president to actually come out to make a statement on that, what happens in the event that the military actually makes a statement saying that they cannot secure elections in another 6 weeks' time.
Well, the threat posed by Boko Haram has been cited by the Election Commission, as we've mentioned, as the reason for delaying this poll. The armed group has been causing havoc in Africa's most populous nation through a wave of bombings and abductions since 2009. According to the government, in a quest to create an Islamic state, Boko Haram has killed more than 30,000 people. The army has struggled to stop attacks by the arms group, but Nigeria and its 4 neighboring countries have now agreed to send 8,700 soldiers to confront Boko Haram. Kayode, in Lagos, Buhari has said, of course, that the government has been ineffective in its fight against Boko Haram and lacks the willpower, if you will, to combat Boko Haram in the north. What is he going to do if he's elected to rein in this armed group? What's the strategy against Boko Haram as far as Muhammadu Buhari is concerned?
The first thing we're going to start doing, and I hope we're going to, President Buhari has given his commitment, is to do what Goodluck Jonathan is not doing. The first thing is unite our country around one common cause. The common cause is to defeat the terrorists by providing our military with the equipment they need, by stopping the corruption and the milking of our military, by providing them with the equipment, by also putting in a strategy in which we don't blame political opponents, that we unite our country and we put the blame back to the terrorists, by making sure that when military commanders say they want to provide ammunition to our men and women, our brave men and women on the field, that those equipment get delivered to them. And by making sure that we get the guarantees from the international community. The United States came out to help Nigeria, but they could not get the commitment and the guarantee from the Nigerian government that this equipment given to Nigeria will not end up in the hands of Boko Haram. The government of Buhari would make sure those equipment get to the hands of our men and women in the armed forces so that they can defend our country. Another thing that is clearly needed, more cooperation within our neighbors, Chad, Niger, which was not there for the past 6 years until the president woke up just 6 weeks to election. It is not true that we went to these countries. They came into our territory because they had to protect their own territory. Right. The Buhari administration will see the importance of collaborating with our neighbors.
But Kayode, yourself, you've said in the past, and I want to talk about this, you've said that General Buhari is not the perfect candidate, and yet today you still think that he's the man to lead Nigeria. Why is this? Why should Nigerians vote for a man whose record is far from exemplary? During his rule, there were allegations, of course, of secret tribunals, of executions for crimes that were not punishable by death. Why should Nigerians vote for a man whose record is really not that great, even?
In our democracy, we are left with a choice. Those who put themselves forward to contest for presidency or any elective positions. In this election, we have two men, two leading candidates, Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan. It is clear that with the records, even despite the inadequacies of General Buhari, the situation in our country is so bad, and the lack of political will and the lack of patriotism on the part of Goodluck Jonathan make it almost impossible to have him get re-elected.
So are you saying that this election is more about... So are you saying that the election is more about Goodluck Jonathan's failure rather than Buhari being an agent for change?
Buhari is clearly an agent. Buhari is the symbol for change. Buhari is not going to be the only person that forms the government. It's going to attract the best of incorruptible people from across the world, Nigerians who have been disillusioned about Nigeria, who because of having a president, Jonathan, who excuses corruption by saying stealing is not corruption, will now have a president known to fight corruption, known to give the political sense of patriotism. He's a man who has personally led troops to get Cameroon out of our territory in the past. He's a man who has known to have stopped corruption within our country, and he's that symbol. This is a political movement, and Buhari is just a symbol of that political movement. Okay. And it is to the commitment of Nigerians for change that we're having him as that symbol.
Let's hear from Manji in London. Manji, since the first democratic elections in Nigeria in 1999, the country has known only one party, and that's the PDP. It seems that a lot of people, out of frustration, want change, hence are rooting for Muhammadu Buhari. So is this a case of the lesser of two evils, if you will, in this election, that people are going for Buhari because they're unhappy with Goodluck Jonathan?
I think there are certainly credible reasons to make that assumption. Really, if you look at, as you rightly pointed out, there's been so many people that have highlighted weaknesses of General Buhari, and so in so many ways, really, I think people are kind of protesting against, 15 years of what they perceive to be a corrupt PDP rule. With that said, I think that irrespective of what government comes into to office later this year, if the elections do carry on later this year, they are effectively inheriting two major challenges on the political side. Obviously, the Boko Haram insurgency, and the on the economic front, the oil price drops, which has actually caused major economic headwinds in the country. So really, the position of a new government is not an enviable one, irrespective of which one comes into power. And I think one of the things that's actually quite worrying, really, for observers of Nigeria, is that neither party has shown any kind of credible policy policies to address both these issues.
Right.
Right now, the focus really is on rejecting a government that has been in power for 15 years. But what we need to see really to assure people that Nigeria is heading on the right direction is for either party to demonstrate what a post-election plan will be.
Well, certainly there are a lot of challenges ahead for the country's next leader. Thank you both for speaking to us. Kayode Ogundamisi in Lagos and Manji Cheto in London. Thanks for your time. And thank you as well for joining us. If you've got anything to add to today's show, go to our program page at aljazeera.com. You can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or you can also send your tweets to @AJ Inside Story. I'm Fuli Batibo from the whole team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.